Well, we're hiking from Rattlesnake Bar down to Anderson Island past Whiskey Bar, looking at the North Fork ditch and how they engineered it around some of the large granite outcroppings. You can see sometimes they had to put in this big, thick retaining wall because the rocks, the area was just too steep. This was the best way to do it. You will still see some rock retaining walls. Anyhow, hope you enjoy the hike. I'm Kevin Knaus with Folsom Lake Hikes. Here at Rattlesnake Bar, and this monument sign is right about where the location of the North Fork ditch cut across at Rattlesnake Bar and went right across the road. And we're going to be following the ditch line at Rattlesnake Bar down to Horseshoe Bar today. Here on the other side of the road, you can see how deep the cut was for the North Fork ditch. And the North Fork ditch came right along down here. It parallels the road going down to the parking lot. You can see the high berms on either side. And this is a little dirt road that you can take down into the Rattlesnake Bar recreation area. And you can see around the other side that the ditch continues the walls were quite high. I guess some of the concrete that they put in is still around, but at least in this section, have never found any. On the trail that leads along the road next to Rattlesnake Bar, you can take it, nice gentle trail, and to your right, if you're traveling west, will be the berm for the North Fork ditch. And of course, it is springtime here, 2021, May 2nd. And a lot of lupin are in bloom. The lake is low water, unfortunately. And so you can see a lot of different aspects of the old Rattlesnake Bar, Whiskey Bar, Horseshoe Bar, gold mining area. Most of the North Fork ditch is choked with blackberries and fallen trees, but occasionally it is open and you can walk right through it. This happens to be part of the Pioneer Express Trail. So I don't know how many people know when they are walking through this area that they are walking in a ditch that was cut in 1854. But you can see the sidewalls, the berm on the left cut into the hillside. The North Fork ditch was started in about 1854 with a dam up at Tamaroo Bar. And I suspect they probably got to this area about 1855 or so. It's not everyone's top of their hit parade to walk through an old ditch on their day off, but I think it's fun. The North Fork ditch was not the first water structure to bring water to the Rattlesnake Bar area. The Bear River ditch first got here in about 1853. There were two ditches on a map from the American River Water and Mining Company. At that time when the map was made, they show fraying or Fry and Colby. But as far as I can determine, this would have been the location for the Bear River Ditch and those other water canals that potentially were bringing water from the Bear River into the Rattlesnake Bar area. And on the old map, it went into a canal. It crossed the, well, first it was there, then the North Fork Ditch crossed it. But down the little ravine here was a reservoir called Oakland. We'll try and get a better shot on the way back. But this, from what I can tell, was the most likely intersection of the first water canal into the Rattlesnake Bar area, with water brought in from the Bear River, of all places. This most likely would have been the Oakland Reservoir for the Bear River Ditch. You can see Folsom Lake out there in the distance. I believe it is at about 35% of capacity. When full, it completely fills up this area. At Rattlesnake Bar, the North Fork Ditch is completely above the full reservoir of Folsom Lake, 466 feet. As it travels south, it gets lower in elevation because that's how the water flows. And it is gradually covered up by Folsom Lake when the lake is full, and that's what has caused most of the destruction to that historic gold rush era work. Walking through a small field of lupin, so pretty purple when it's blooming in the spring. This most likely was a pit that was excavated for gold. You can see the cobblestones on top and a layer of granite underneath. So river probably ran through here. They might have done some dredging or a little bit of hydraulic mining to get to the gold that generally sat on top of the granite in this area. This is one of the locations where the concrete is still in place, the concrete sidewall for the North Fork Ditch. Fairly well preserved. This is just at the water line of Folsom Lake. And you can see how far away it is right now. So it comes up pretty good. You can see how high the North Fork Ditch was above the river, and that was good for the miners down below because it gave them a little bit of head pressure with the water flowing down towards their maybe hydraulic mining operations, long toms. So probably about 50 foot ahead, maybe 100 foot ahead at the most. And just like the movie, it's a mad, mad world where the palm trees mark the spot of the treasure. These two palm trees, sentinels, mark where the North Fork Ditch went right across this trail. Well, trail now, must have been a homestead, somebody's home at one point in time. Nice view overlooking Whiskey Bar at this point. Now, there are reports and pictures of people that had water mills, water wheels in the North Fork Ditch. And I have looked for remnants of those and not found anything. But this would have been a good spot. Obviously, the homeowner or the landowner put in two palm trees, possibly for, I don't know, maybe they came from a land of palm trees, and they may have had a water wheel to take water out of the North Fork Ditch for their home consumption, for livestock, other farming operations. This area just really evokes home. This would have been somebody's home. I could live here. This is Whiskey Bar. Well, when the lake is low and the water is running. And there was a bridge that ran across here, and I'm not entirely certain. I've never been able to find any bridge foundations or abutments. Maybe when the lake gets lower, it was a suspension bridge. Maybe it was at that little point out there someplace. But there was also a sawmill in this area that cut a lot of the lumber. Flumes, homes, long toms, sluices, all kinds of stuff. Long gone. The North Fork Ditch runs above Whiskey Bar. You can see the red decomposed granite line that was cut. Everything else has fallen away. Unfortunately, a lot of trees have fallen, so this part doesn't make a good trail. You have to go down a little bit below this hillside to actually walk along it. Here you can see the wire outline and the wire in the concrete sidewall of the North Fork Ditch on this portion above Whiskey Bar. Full of debris, a nice tree growing out of it. It went around this fairly steep ravine, and I haven't been able to get over there. There may have been a flume. I see more concrete sidewall over there. You can see how steep that is. Some nice big boulders over there. So there may have been a flume across this area. Seasonal creek. Here we have a waste gate. You can see the little slots in the side of the concrete to dump water out of the North Fork Ditch into this ravine above Whiskey Bar, right across from some nice granite outcroppings. The North Fork Ditch through Rattlesnake Bar was actually pretty easy because it was kind of level, deep soil. Then once you got over to Whiskey Bar, the canyon got a little bit steeper, more granite to get through, and then they had to negotiate this little hairpin turn. And it rose up quite high above Horseshoe Bar on the river, still under the water of Folsom Lake. On the other side of the ravine, you can see the North Fork Ditch, the North Fork Ditch remnants of the concrete. And if you can get up to the other side of the ravine, you can see how steep it is. And also, you'll be able to see the concrete sidewall up in this area. Nice curved around the bend of the hillside. And you'll be rewarded with some beautiful views of Folsom Lake and El Dorado County over there. Right across is Goose Flat, Wild Goose Flats. That's where the bridge should have been, but we're still exploring that. Rock retaining walls along the North Fork Ditch in this area. It got very steep. Those rocks placed there in the 1850s. The concrete lining put in beginning about 1913 to reduce the estimated 30% water loss of American River water flowing through the North Fork Ditch into the soil. Of course, all the trees and the grass liked it, but that was water the American River and Water and Mining Company couldn't sell. So at its height, they had 60 to 75 cubic feet per second flowing through the canal, a minimum of about 30 cubic feet per second. From the other side of the ravine, you can see that the North Fork ditch is just cut next to large granite boulders. I don't even know how they kept the water in this area without some sort of concrete layer. But there it is. Can you imagine working up on this hillside in the 1850s, overlooking the river down there? This section is supported by a large granite outcropping on the backside. And you can see coming down how they use the local rock to support the ditch. And they may have had to carve some of that. And now we're standing in the ditch line, and you can see right down there how the ditch ran on this hillside. And just walking in the ditch, and this would have been a turnout for the water. I'm not sure exactly why there is so much concrete here, but you can see the waste area. We have our slots right in here for the boards. Maybe there was something else going on here. And it continued around the curve. This certainly looks like a bridge structure, very near Horseshoe Bar Road, but of course it's got the lip, so you wouldn't be able to drive over it from this angle here. Not entirely certain what this was used for. An incredibly large pad. Over the river with some substantial rebar to reinforce the concrete. You can see fairly large rock in there. The larger the rock, sometimes the less you don't have as much stability and strength. And then out in this area was Horseshoe Bar and that mining community. Nice trail through the loop-in, across the side. Sometimes it is not that pleasant. The Pioneer Express Trail, which is a couple hundred yards to your right, west, is an easier walking trail. You don't have to step over any stones or fallen trees for the most part. But when this is clear and you're next to the water, it's a very nice hike. Found some Native American grinding holes, mortars. It has to be the right granite. Some of it is just too flaky. I believe this rock has probably also changed in character. It's on an angle now. It's probably been compromised by the lake. It was not too far away from the river. So this might have been a nice spot with trees. Grind some acorns. And then right over there was the North Fork ditch, and the Native Americans, for the most part, had been pushed out of the area before the ditch was built. Yeah, occasionally you'll come across one of these concrete paths. Not entirely certain if I don't see any rebar where a pump might have been, but it was right along the North Fork ditch. Of course, all these trees are kind of, blocking it and have fallen down. And where the landscape permitted, the North Fork ditch was just cut into the soil and around a couple of the hills. This is one of those areas where you have native oaks, oak savanna woodland. Such a nice area to walk through. These oaks are not that old. Many of the trees were obviously cut down for wood and homes, flumes, so nice blue oak. So the oak trees are generally young out here. Can't tell you why this area of the North Fork ditch and the concrete sidewall is intact, but there's a lot of soil on the riverside, so maybe that's helped out. Nice sweeping curve around this little hill. Another waste outlet on the North Fork ditch. Quite large rock in there. Walking through the ditch, concrete sidewall above Folsom Lake. Nice big concrete sidewall on the North Fork ditch where very steep, obviously, rock retaining wall just wasn't working. Well, we have come to the end, well, at least of this hike, to the great Stone Flume wall of the North Fork ditch. We have hiked down from Rattlesnake Bar, past Horseshoe Bar, down to this area here, which is right across from what was Kehoe Canyon, a very narrow spot in the American River, now known as Anderson Island. Thanks for joining us on Folsom Lake Hikes. My name is Kevin Knaus.